Hey friends, so we are getting started today with block 11. If you haven't already, make sure you watch the short video on how to make this magic circle or adjustable ring. We're going to be starting off with that today. Once you have that created with that little foundational slip, we are going to chain 2, and that's going to count as our first stitch. We're going to be working with sets of double crochet today, so that chain 2, again, it's going to count as a stitch. I like to unwind my little loose tail from here. Okay, so from here we're going to do 2 double crochets, and including your first chain 2, this is going to be our first set of 3. So for granny squares, you typically have sets of 3 that you're working with. Anytime we turn a corner, we're going to chain 2. So 1, 2. And now we're going to work another set of 3 into our adjustable ring. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so here you can see we've got 2 sides of our first, basically this is going to be a row. We're working from the center out. So chain 2, another set of 3 double crochets. And if you notice, I kind of keep tightening this because I want to keep it out of the way. Chain 2, this will be our last set. And there's our third double crochet. Okay, so from here, we're going to chain 2. And we're going to close up this last corner for our first round 1. And we're going to do that by doing a slip stitch. So we can see here our first 2 chains that counted as a stitch. We're going to go into the second chain. And you don't do any yarning over, nothing. With a slip stitch, all you do is insert your hook into the desired space. And we're basically just replacing your current loop with a new one. So you're going to yarn over, pull through whatever's on your hook, and then you've created a nice little join here that's barely visible. So we've just finished round 1. And so instead of rows, you hear I'm saying rounds now. So to get started with round 2, what we're going to do is slip stitch our way over to this free corner. So that first slip stitch to join was in the top of my chain 2. I'm going to do my next slip stitch in the top of the second stitch. Pull it on through, and another slip stitch in the top of this third one. So those slip stitches have just helped me work over to a space that I want to be in. Each row you want to get at the start of a free space, or basically you want to get to the end of one of your sets of 3. So now that we're here, we're going to work into these spaces for all of our remaining rounds. So to get started, you're going to insert into that space, and we're going to be chaining 2. What I did here was really just one last little slip stitch because I want it to be in that space. So chain 2, 1, 2, and finish out my set of 3 double crochets. So I'm going to do 2 more. 1, 2, and we're in a corner, so I'm going to chain 2 to go around that corner. I'm going to do another set of 3 in this corner space. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going over one of our first sets. Instead of chaining 2 in between, you're only going to chain 1. And we'll work into that 1 chain space later. So now we're back here at a corner. And what I want you guys to do to finish out this round is just finish up with doing your 3 double crochets. You're going to chain 2 to make a corner, another 3 double crochets, and then just a chain 1 space. Anytime you're in a flat side, only chain 1. So it's always chain 1 between, unless it's a corner, and then you chain 2. Go ahead and finish your other 2 corners here. You can re-watch this portion if you need to, but I'm going to meet you at the end of this round, and we'll start on round 3 together, just to make sure you're comfortable working into these gaps for the rest of the block. So I will see you at the end of round 2. Alright, so I've just finished up this last corner here. Again, for this second round, the only big thing you had to keep in mind to get here was that you had your sets of 3 double crochets in these empty spaces, 2 chains in between to make a corner, and only 1 chain in between to make your space along the sides of the square. So here we're ending at the end of row 2. I've already done my chain 1 space because I'm making a side. And I'm locating that first chain 2 that counted as a stitch. I'm going into the 1, 2, that second stitch, just right into the top of it. I'm going to push my hook through. Sometimes I just use my fingers, and that's okay. And I'm going to pull my yarn through and just slip stitch that to join. And then to start your new row, slip stitch your way over to the left side of a chain, or excuse me, of a double crochet set. So slip stitch, and now we're here, but I'm going to do one last slip stitch into this empty space, and I'm going to go ahead and tug and tighten that one up. Alright, so to start row 3, we're just going to do the same thing that we did for row 2, and you're going to do this again and again. So you start on the left side of a double crochet set, chain 2, which will count as a stitch, finish out your set, so 2 more double crochets, and we are in a corner spot, so I chain 2 to make a corner. Another double crochet, set in that corner, and I'm on a flat side, chain 1. Here's a gap. I'm going to make a set in that gap. So 3 double crochets, I'm on the flat side, so chain 1. Another 3. And because I'm in a corner, chain 2, and another set of 3. So hopefully this is starting to make some sense to you. Some of you have probably already turned off this video and you're just doing your thing, and that's great. If you are following this sampler series, here we go, flat side chain 1. If you're following the sampler series, then go ahead and stick with me for a bit. We will check in when we get to the end of the block. I just want you guys to keep completing this same pattern, the same set of instructions. So chain 1 on the flat sides, chain 2 in the corners, and you're doing 3 sets of double crochet. Just remember when you're ending that you'll do your slip stitch in that first chain 2 set, and then you're going to slip stitch your way over to the left side of the that double crochet set that you made, and then you can get started. So you'll just continue doing that pattern until your square measures up to the other squares that we've made. Should be about 8 by 8, and then we'll be wrapping up with our 28 stitches around each side. So I will join you again here in a little bit just to show you my finished square, and I'll see you then. Alright guys, so I'm at the end of my block here. I ended up having 6 rounds to hit the desired size that I wanted for this series. I'm going to wrap up, even though I have some nice clean seams here, I'm still going to go ahead and do my 28 stitches around each side with the 3 in the corners. Just that way I have some consistency for the edging of all my blocks. And at the end of the series, when we piece those together, they will be good to go. So in this one, you should have used that slip stitch, or excuse me, the adjustable ring video, and we also had a slip stitch technique at each of the corners. So you learned 2 new tricks today. Also, you just learned a really great pattern. This is just a good classic to have. It's a great stash buster. If you look at the seamless color change video, it's a great way to get through some different stashes of bits and ends in your yarn. So, hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next week for block number 12. We are going to be doing a variation of a granny square, just focusing on the corners. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, guys.